Welcome to the Week 5 interactive lecture. Last week you learned about thesis statements. Remember, a good thesis must state the essay, subject, or topic, present the writer's claim, that is, attitude, opinion, idea, or point, concerning the essay's subject. And your thesis statement cannot be too narrow or too broad. Your thesis statement must be supported by the content in the body paragraphs, and your thesis statement must be developed over time to justify your research and reflective thought. And so next, we are going to discuss about the body, how you are going to organize and connect evidence, transitions, and conclusion. You have two kinds of organization. You can either have a chronological, in which you talk about events as they occur in time order, or emphatic. In other words, you list the least important reason first, and then have the most important reason last. So here you would say something like, in 1835, something happened, and in 1840 something else happened, and in 1855 something else happened. So that is time order. Or if I say I want to be a nurse because first I love to help people, second I love having a stable job, but most importantly I want to be a role model for my students. So here emphatic order means that you leave the last reason the most important one. The purpose of transition is to guide the reader by signaling the direction of the author's thoughts. So transition words link or connect the idea of one paragraph to the next paragraph. So when you want to say something, instead of saying and, you would say next, moreover, also, furthermore. And then when you are doing time, you would say first, second, third, or first, then, next, meanwhile. Or if you want to say something instead of always but all the time, you could say however, yet, on the other hand, instead. And then instead, an illustration is also another example of, instead of saying and all the time, you would say for example, for instance, such as. And then in the conclusion paragraph, or in your last sentence of your body paragraph, you could use last, finally, therefore, consequently, or in conclusion. So when you use transition words, it helps connect your ideas together, and it gives your essay a smoother flow. You can also use other transition words known as conjunctive adverbs. So here are some common conjunctive adverbs. And these conjunctive adverbs put two independent clauses together. So if I say, Mary is thin, however, Donald is fat. Mary studies hard. Moreover, she gets good grades. So moreover is just like and. Mary studies hard and she gets good grades. Furthermore, she gets good grades. Therefore, she gets good grades. Additionally, she gets good grades. So all of those mean different ways of saying and those are known as transition words of addition. And so when you have a transition word, you need to have a comma. First you have a semicolon before the transition word, and then you have a comma after the transition word. And you can end your paragraph with a summary or final thought, a thought-provoking quotation, or a prediction or recommendation. This is how you would either conclude your each body paragraph, and also how you would do your conclusion. Parts of speech. Parallelism is when you have when you use adjective, 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 or when you have parallel structure that's all the same within one sentence. So if I want to say I love shopping, sleeping, and eating, ing, okay, that's parallel structure. Or I could say Martin Luther King is was brave, charming, and smart. So brave, charming, and smart. Adjective, adjective, adjective. Or I could say Martin Luther King Jr. was a brave man. He was an intelligent man, and he was a courageous man. So here you have adjective, noun, adjective, noun, adjective, noun. So that is called parallelism. And so when you write your thesis statement, you need to have parallelism. So here is an example. So parallelism is words in a pair or series that are balanced. So here you could say smartphones allow us to communicate with friends and entertain ourselves. And the to here is understood. My job includes checking the inventory, initialing the orders, and calling the suppliers. So ing, ing, ing. That's known as parallel structure. Consistent point of view. This means that if you start the sentence with present tense, then you need to have present tense, present tense, present tense for all the verbs so that you have a consistent point of view. You cannot have present tense, then suddenly past tense, and suddenly future tense, because that would just confuse your reader. So here's an example of consistent verb tense. The gardener, present tense, breaks up the hard earth with a shovel. Present tense, adds peat moss and other compost. Then present tense, blends the soil evenly. So present tense, and present tense. And you have to have consistent your, if you have a plural pronoun, then you have to have a plural, if you have a plural pronoun, you have to have a plural everything else, okay? So here you have pronouns we, and then you have to have we, and then neighbors, and we. And so here your pronouns also have to be consistent. Vivid mental pictures. Use specific words to create vivid mental pictures for your reader. And so instead of having a very boring sentence like the plane landed at the airport, so you could add adjectives to make your paragraph more specific. So you would say, instead of saying the plane, you would say United Airlines 747 landed at Reagan National Airport, instead of just saying it landed at the airport. And so subjects are in the sentence is the first word, and the subject is the one that does the action. So when you write your essays, you always want to use active voice, because here when you have active voice, the subject is the one that does the action and therefore makes your essay sound much more dramatic. You want to avoid using passive voice. In the passive voice, the subject receives the action of being diverted by the engineers, whereas in active voice, it's the engineers, it's the subject that does the action. So always stick with active voice when you are writing your academic paper. Keep your paper short. So instead of saying, as you can see what I previously wrote, skip all of that. Skip in this paper, skip, so you want it, so instead of being so wordy, you try to be concise. So get that out in this paper, and instead of saying, I am planning to describe the hobby that I enjoy of collecting old comic books, you want to be concise. So I enjoy collecting old comic books. So good writing is direct and concise, not wordy. Sentence variety. There are 4 ways in which you can have better sentences. So instead of having simple sentence, simple sentence, simple sentence, so coordination means that you use fanboys. In other words, you use and, for, but, yet, so. So you can use coordinating conjunctions in order to have 2 sentences of equal importance. That's known as a compound sentence. So here they give an example with so. Remember, fanboys, for, and, nor, or, so, yet, but, or, so, yet. So that's one way of having sentence variety. Subordination is when you use a subordinating conjunction. A subordinating conjunction is a conjunction that renders the independent clause dependent. So as soon as you have a subordinating conjunction, it turns that sentence into a sentence fragment. So even though I couldn't afford them, suddenly, as soon as you add even though, then the sentence I couldn't afford them becomes a dependent clause and a sentence fragment. And therefore, that even though sentence, which is the dependent clause, now needs another sentence to make it complete. Okay, so that's known as subordination. And so you can Google yourself and when you have this kind of sentence, dependent clause plus an independent clause, this is known as a complex sentence. And before, when you had a coordination, and, but, for, nor, so, yet, fanboys, that's known as a compound sentence. So you have the choice of either making your sentence a complex sentence or a compound sentence. So in this way, you don't keep having simple sentence, simple sentence, simple sentence, simple sentence in your essay. Another way to change your is to use a special opening. That means that you would use I introduced this a little bit when I mentioned a reduced adjective clause. So here, instead of saying, I was puzzled by their freshness, bananas were on sale this week, you take away the I was, and then you end up with puzzled by their freshness. Bananas were on sale this week. So anytime you have, and here, instead of saying, I was hoping to buy fresh fruit, bananas were on sale this week. So you take away the I was, and you end up with a reduced introductory phrase. That's what it's called. It's reduced because you no longer have the I and the was. So you can do this with I was, he was, she was, I am, he is, she is, they are. And you can get, whenever you have subject, and then the be verb, and then puzzled, hoping, you can get rid of the I was and then make that into an introductory clause. So instead of saying I was puzzled by their freshness, you can say puzzled by their freshness. Instead of saying I was hoping to buy the fruit, you can say hoping to buy the fruit. So here you're creating introductory clauses. So you can turn the first sentence into an introductory clause, and then you have to put a comma after the introductory clause. You can also use surprisingly, bananas were on sale this week. So you can also add an adverb. Adverbs can come everywhere in a sentence. Adverbs could be in the beginning of the sentence, the middle of the sentence, and the end of the sentence. So adverbs are an excellent way to add variety to your sentence. Then you can put an infinitive group, an infinitive phrase. To better move produce, bananas were on sale this week. Or you can add a prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase gives time and place. So at the corner market, bananas were on sale this week. And then the special opening, also known as introductory phrase. And so when you have an introductory phrase, you have to remember to use a comma after the introductory phrase. Another way to make your sentences sing is to add more adjectives and add more verbs, so that it's called a cumulative sentence, so that you can add more to the sentence in order to give your sentence more description. So I gently applied a sticky new Band-Aid to the deep, ragged cut on my finger. So here you can add adjectives to your sentence to make it more detailed. Or you can have a compound verb, compound predicate. So instead of just saying the truck bounced off a guardrail, period, you can say the truck bounced off a guardrail, sideswiped a tree, and plunged down the embankment, and put everything together into one sentence. So you can add more verbs to your sentence in order to add more detail. So these are the 4 ways in which you can have sentence variety. And so after you figure out that you have good essay structure, as called revision, Then you go into proofreading, and it's in the proofreading stage of your rewrite that you are going to look for sentence variety, because we always correct for essay structure first. Then after we correct for essay structure, then we correct for grammar. And in grammar, we want to make sure all our commas are in place and that we have sentence variety. Here are the grammar concepts for the week 5 lecture. So capitalization, so capitalize known regional locations. Spell out numbers that take no more than 2 words or 3 words. So you, instead of saying Jody has a file of 350 words, 350 recipes. And if it's less than 3 words, you would say only 12 students have signed up for the field trip. So this is part of your quiz, okay? So abbreviations. And so these grammar concepts are also part of my week 4 instructor session, week 5 quiz prep. I do explain about capitalization, where if you got Uncle John or Uncle Robert or King John, so you have to capitalize titles, you have to capitalize places, you have to capitalize ethnicities, French people, France, and you have to capitalize places and numbers. Anything more than 3 words or 2 words, anything more than 2 words, you have to write it out. And then abbreviations. In a formal abbreviation, you should avoid using text language or texting language, and only use, and whenever you use abbreviation for the first time in a paper, you need to write it out. And back to numbers. Spell out numbers that take no more than 2 words. Otherwise, use the Arabic numbers themselves. Jody has a file of 350 recipes. Only 12 students have signed up for the field trip. And so here, when you have a short number of less than 2 words, spell it out. I believe I said it wrong before. Apostrophes. Use apostrophes for contractions. A contraction is formed when 2 words are combined. An apostrophe shows where letters are omitted. So here you have to say I apostrophe LL, call you later. So this I'll stands for I will call you later. Punctuation. Question and exclamation marks are placed inside or outside of the quotation marks, depending on the meaning of the sentence. So here you would say, do you want ice cream? So that's just a standard question. And so here you would put the question mark inside the exclamation points. And then if you're just going to ask somebody, do you want ice cream? You're just asking a standard question. Then you put the question marks inside the quotation marks. Inside the quotation marks. And then, was he serious when he said, I want ice cream? Okay, so if you're like so amazed, or it's something so unusual, or you doubt, really there's aliens on Earth? Okay, and then when it becomes something amazing like that, then you can put the question mark outside of the sentence, meaning that it's so big. Okay, that's just, and then parts of speech. Writing in active voice is more engaging, and so you should always write an active voice where the subject does the action. So instead of saying the dog was badly stung by the bees, okay, that sounds kind of boring because here the dog subject is receiving the action of being stung by the bees. It sounds much more dynamic if you say bees stung the dog badly. So always use active voice in your paper. So which one has correct grammar? Micah wore a pale green tuxedo. Vicky's note to Dan read, I'll be home by 7:30. Sam closed all the windows, but the thunderstorm never arrived. And so which one has correct grammar? And why is one of them not correct? And so here you have Vicky's note to Dan read, and you're missing your quotation marks. Remember, in the week 5 quiz, I say you got to have a beginning quotation mark and an ending quotation mark, making this one wrong. Sam closed all the windows, but the thunderstorm never arrived. And so here, actually this one could be correct also, but the correct answer is Micah wore a pale green, oh, I see, okay, I got it wrong. Excuse me. Actually, this is wrong because this is missing a comma. Michael wore a pale, comma, green tuxedo. I was wondering why they had two different, never mind. This is the correct one, okay? So I got a little bit confused. The one of them here, this requires when you have two adjectives in a series, you need a comma. And then here, it's missing quotation marks. So the only one that's correct is C, because it's like when you have fanboys, you have to put a comma when fanboys is between two sentences. Fanboys is for, and, nor, but, yet, and so. So you can tell I'm just doing this on the fly, huh? And that's pretty much the end of your week 5 interactive lecture. And here, when you look at the references at the very end, this is how we do a references in APA at the end of our paper. Okay, so when you start writing your in-text citations, so you have your author name, you have the date, then you have the article name in italics. I also talked about that in the week 5 quiz prep. Is any kind of title, you got to italicize it. Then you write the edition number, and then you write the publisher. And so this is for a book. It's slightly different if you have a website. Here you still have the author name, date, and article name, but then you're going to have name of website, retrieved, I don't know what today's date is, retrieved February 7th, from, and then whatever the website address is. And so this is how you would write it for a book, and then for a website address, it's just slightly different. Anyway, so if you have any questions about the week 5 interactive lecture, you can feel free to email me. Let's see if this, yeah, you can feel free to email me.